Divine greetings, ones and zeros, zeros and ones, boys and girls that are now men and women, kings and queens, gods and goddesses, spiritual beings of this divine matrix. Welcome to this live episode. My name is Clay, and tonight I'm continuing the series that I started earlier on Heart Day, which is the full moon. I didn't anticipate doing this whole series or doing this whole series of discussions or revelations. However, this is what is happening. So I mentioned Heart Day being the full moon, and that references the chakra system. As that references the chakra system, and Heart Day being the full moon, the previous day to Heart Day was the solar plexus. The previous to that was the sacral, and the previous to that was the root. And I honor the 7 days of the full moon cycle, and I'm anticipating honoring the 7 days of the new moon cycle. And when it is the full moon, wherever the full moon is, it is Heart Day, and wherever the new moon is, that's Heart Day. And then the days prior to that would be the lower chakras ascending into the upper chakras. And today we're in the upper chakra of the third eye, and tomorrow it's going to be Crown Day. So now, getting into the third eye, let me flip the camera and show the fire. In this series, I'm always burning the fire, and above the fire you can see, ooh, look at that. Above the fire you can see the full moon coming up. And where I'm in Florida, Eastern Standard Time. It is now sometime after 11, and there is the full moon. It's not quite full because the full moon was 2 days ago, and that was Heart Day. So today I'm going to talk about what I have seen through my third eye, and it has to do with the Kemites, my ancestors, the Kemites, and their reference to the cosmic year, and how the Kemites look at our journey here on Earth. As I've mentioned before in another live, we come here on Earth to have the earthly experience. And the earthly experience is one where trauma, what we call trauma, and I'm going to describe it a little bit different today. So we come to Earth, and in coming to Earth, we make a bond, because we are consciousness. Human beings are consciousness, right? And as I've said before, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And as I am a spiritual being having a human experience, the human experience has this word that we call consciousness. And consciousness is really awareness of the divine. And what we call the divine is source, awareness of source. As we become aware of source, we hold ourselves accountable to the awareness of source. Now, here is the story that I'm putting forward as that which came through today through my third eye recognition. So human beings come to Earth to have the experience as human beings, as spiritual beings having the human experience. In having the human experience, you choose to come here, we choose to come here in a bond. And as we choose to come here in a bond, we are bound to certain finite principles. And as we are bound to certain finite principles, we have the capacity, we have the ability to transcend those finite principles. For example, we have the ability to transcend death. Death is a transitory process. So, and when I say death, I mean the ending of the life in the flesh. And as I'm aware, and I trust that some of us here are aware, that the spiritual aspect of your life means that you know that you are an infinite being. And in being an infinite being, what we have here witnessing in the flesh is a finite aspect of the infinite being. So the ending of the flesh is not the ending of life. The ending of the flesh is a transition to greater life, a transition forwarding into what we call greater life. So as we transition into what we call greater life, or what is deemed to be greater life, the infinite, we are bound to the finite as we have the experience. Now, one of the ways I see today, or I saw today, is to express that finite aspect as a circle. So we come here bound as a circle, and we're bonded as a circle. As you look at a circle, the circle looks like it has no beginning, it has no end. However, that is perception. And in that perception, the circle is made. Now, when you adhere to the principle that you are an infinite being, you know that there is no beginning, no end. Now, to get out of that circle is the main topic of this conversation. How do you get out of that circle? And mathematically speaking, one of the ways to get out of the circle is, as you recognize that you are bonded to the circle, bound to the circle. When you divide, you are actually subtracting. So you subtract a piece of the circle to extend it in a way that the circle forms a spiral, because a spiral is continuous and a circle is bound in the bond that it makes. So to make the spiral, you subtract pieces of the circle to then extend it into the actual beginning and end concept. Now, a circle is 360 degrees. As a circle is 360 degrees, what you do is you divide by 72. And why do I say divide by 72? I say divide by 72 because in the body and in the etheric body, it has been known that there are 72 nadis, or 72,000 nadis, what I call as a Rasta 72 nations. There are 72 nations that make up a person. A person in its entirety, in any given one moment, is comprised of 72 nations. Now, when you divide the 360 by 72, you get 5. Now, as you look at a cross here, or the northwest, southeast aspects of life, you see that there are 4 turns, and those 4 turns form a circle. On the 5th turn, you should recognize that if you start at north, you end up at north again on the 4th turn, and then the 5th turn, you see that you're really at somewhere you've been before. Now, the question or the objective is to get out of that circle. So on your 5th turn, you have the ability to change and get out of that circle. Now, how do you rectify that when you divide 360 by 72, you get 5? And then this takes some faith, because then you have to recognize that 5 is the number of change. And 5 also represents the 5th degree. And it is in the 5th degree that change is made. It is in the 5th dimension that change is made. It is in the 5 aspects of the mind that change is made. So now when you divide 360 degrees by 72, you get 5. Now counting from the chakras, if you count from the chakra of the where the nadis are, which is the solar plexus. The solar plexus is the coming down from the crown chakra. The solar plexus is the 5th chakra, and this is where the 72 nations are kept. And as you greetings in a standing overstanding. I trust that you've been here and you're following what I'm saying. And if what I'm saying is not coherent in your heart, feel free to question me and make a comment so we can share this revelation that I had today, a revelation of the third eye. And what I am saying is that a human being is bound or bonded to a circle, and that circle we refer to as trauma. To get out of that trauma, you divide the circle by 72. The 72 is coming from the 72 nadis in the solar plexus, or the 72 nations. When you divide the circle by 72, you get 5. And this happens in the 5th chakra. So now you're going to take 5 more steps to continue down into the earth and then back up again to the 5th chakra again. And I'll go through the steps. You go from the solar plexus, which coming down from the cosmos is the 5th chakra. And then you divide the 72, the 360, my bad, by 72, and you get 5. That 5 you're going to take and extend it down into the earth star. So after the solar plexus, then it is the sacral chakra, then it is the earth chakra, and then it is the, not the earth chakra. Let me start again. After the solar plexus, it is the sacral chakra. That's 1. Then you go to the root chakra. That's 2. Then you go to the earth star chakra. That's 3 for creative completion. In the earth, you're going to pick up your awareness. And once you pick up your awareness, this is you healing the trauma, right, that you put in the earth. Then you're going to go back to the root chakra. That's 4. And then you go to the sacral again. That's 5. Now you're ascending. When you get to the solar plexus, you're going to now multiply that which you divide. And then you're going to go to the heart chakra. That's 1. Then the throat chakra. That's 2. Then the third eye. That's 3. Then the crown. That's 4. And then you go to the soul star chakra. That's 5. And that is where you make the cosmic transition or transaction to gain your or reclaim your healing from the cosmic platonic nature that you have in the cosmos. So I get the sense that that is not all the way clear. I have a clear sense of it in my mind. So what I'm saying is that that represents how trauma is worked through the body. And as you break the circle and connect one portion to the earth and then the other portion to the cosmos, then this is how you repair your DNA. When you go through that process, you will see that that process was a 12-step process. And that 12-step process is what I call repairing the 12-strand DNA. The 12-strand DNA with the 9 principle, with the 9 chakras. Now, I'm feeling the heat of the fire. Let me show the fire again. Not only the fire, but the moon. There she is. There is the moon. Zoom into that moon. How much can I zoom in? There it is. And I love the moon. I've gotten to love the moon very much because it is because of the moon and following the moon that I am able to Wow. It is because of the moon that I track my, what do you call it? My mentality. I'm able to track my emotionality as my emotionality um, informs my mentality. And let me do a little repair of this fire right here. In a standing, I see that you say you love the moon as well. Yes, I love the moon. I've gotten to love the moon. I used to think that it was trivial. I used to think that the moon was trivial. I thought it was just this physical thing um, happening every approximately 28 days. However, I've gotten to be in the experience of it where I can predict my emotions rising and falling based on the moon, based on the cycle of the moon. And it took me some while to get out of the mind frame that this isn't so. It took me a while to really see that as the moon moves, so does my emotions move, and that with help from my partner, I it led me to Kemet, the land of my ancestors. And in a standing, I'll ask you, where are your ancestors? Where do you say your ancestors are from? And I'm talking spiritual ancestors, um, because it is where the ancestors, where my apologies, I'm rambling a little bit. Let me take a breath. So, as I was saying, I've gotten to the point where I see that my ancestors um, are okay. Thank you, Inner Standing, for that confirmation. I was saying that my ancestors are from Kemet. My spiritual ancestors are from Kemet, and in my confusion, I was led to Kemet, and in being led to Kemet, it gave me a lot of insights into the human psyche, what what this world, this colonized world, this Gregorian calendar world, what they call the psyche, the psychology, what the English language calls the psychology, the psyche, which I later came to know as the soul. Even though I had been to college, I have an architectural degree. I'm an architect, and I went through that process. I had not made the connection that when the European says psyche, the European is really referring to, or when the European says psychology, the European is really referring to what we call soul. And I never grew up in the Christian church. However, I've always looked at soul as something elusive. So after I had my schizophrenic break, I realized that the primary aspect of life, I was missing that primary aspect of life. I realized that I was, I had gone insane, clinically insane, schizophrenic, hearing voices, seeing things, smelling things, tasting all types of things, being in an insane state. And I had the humility to humble myself as a child to receive my own spirit. And as I received my own spirit began to breastfeed me. As a grown 38-year-old man, my spirit began to breastfeed me, whispering to me these things that I had never allowed the spirit, my own spirit, to feed me, to teach me, to uncover to me. And as this process took place, it led me to Kemet, the land of my ancestors. And it is in Kemet that I saw the reverence of the moon and the reverence of the 365 days. That this 365 days is not scientific per se, because science cannot put an exact number on the days, because you can't put an exact number on the time, I should say, not the days, on the time. The time is referenced in the days. So they give you numbers like 365 and a quarter year. They give you things like a leap year. They give you these different anomalies. And I had to find out for myself exactly what these things are. So in doing so, I got led to the moon. And as I got led to the moon, this is where my life now has taken a turn to present some clarity to me. It is an emotional ride, and some people face emotionality more than others depending on their empathic nature. And before the schizophrenic break, I was never an emotional person. I did not consider myself an emotional person at all. It is after the schizophrenic break that I got in tune with my intuition, with my intuitive side. As I said, the spirit spoke to me and I received the spirit. So now I totally accept that I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. And at this time, I'll remind anyone who's in the chat to comment questions, well-hearted questions, and for those who may watch this later on, to send a comment or a question, and I will do my best to answer it. One of the things that is very apparent to me as a Rastafari, is the significance of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie's coronation, and what that coronation means. And the primary thing in that coronation is that as the earth has its trauma in consciousness, mankind has its trauma in consciousness, that consciousness is represented by 360 degrees. That trauma is represented by 360 degrees. Now, it is no coincidence that I don't trust in coincidences. Nothing is a coincidence. Inner standing, overstanding, being here is not a coincidence. It's not an accident, it's not a fluke. And according to YouTube, there is one other person here. That's not an accident, it's not a coincidence. That is the algorithmic truth playing its part. Unless it could also be AI, which is still algorithmically true. There is an entity of sorts here. Even if it's a lie, it's a lying entity. So now, as I talk about the Rastafari and the Ethiopian coronation that took place, that coronation that took place is housed or hosting 72 nations. So what that tells me is that in the consciousness of mankind, 72 nations, which is represented in my consciousness as the 72 nadis of the solar plexus, because the solar plexus represents identity. And as the solar plexus represents the identity of the earth, it represents the identity of the consciousness body of the earth. And this solar plexus, having 72 nadis or 72,000 nadis, is synonymous with the 72 nations that came and knelt and bowed before His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie and his queen partner, Empress Menen. Now what that tells me is that there was a transmutation that took place, that coronation, which is on November the 2nd, 1930. And that transmutation that went into the earth served as a reset. One of the beautiful things with the numbering system of the mathematical equation is that when you divide 360 by 72, you get 5. And 5, my memory escapes me right now. Okay, I'm recalling something. So I'm going to go forward to an insight. So the not the Ethiopians, Kemet. Kemet recorded the cosmic year. And as Kemet recorded the cosmic year, their number for recording the cosmic year was 25,920. When you divide 25,920 by 72, you get 360. 360 represents the trauma in the earth. As 360 represents the trauma in the earth, you divide 360 by the 72 nations, and then you will get 5. It took 5 years for the moment of truth to arrive in the earth. 5 represents change. So I'm not talking about 5 literal years, I'm talking about 5 spiritual years. In those 5 spiritual years, here comes the age of Aquarius. And in the age of Aquarius, I am here as a witness to repent and put out into the earth's consciousness that it is the year of the Great Reset, that the 1930 coronation of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie and his queen partner, Empress Menen, signified the reset of human consciousness. And that human consciousness has to honor the significance of Kemet, as Ethiopia is the ancestral nation to Kemet, the Kushites, the Kemites. These are all the same people. So too, the consciousness that came through Kemet is declaring that it is to be honored in significance. And that is what I'm doing right now as a child, as an ancestor, as a father, as a partner, as a brother, as a kinfolk, as they would say, as a man, as a risen man, as a spiritual being having a human experience. I'm here to declare that offset. And if I trust that you are all able to follow what it is that I am saying. And it would be beneficial to anyone listening to check out the numbers that I'm talking about. Check out the 72 nations that bowed before His Imperial Majesty and Empress Menen. And it's not about the physicality of the man and all those things. I'm talking about the energy. Look at what took place in Ethiopia. The entire world, the 72 nations that attended this coronation was representing the entire world, who is saying that our identity is being divided or condensed into this manner so that it can expand out into the cosmos, so that mankind can have their rebirth. And that is me saying a lot. Some of that information I've never divulged before, I've never unclosed before, I've never uncovered before in my own consciousness. And I'm absolutely certain that in this age of Aquarius, the beautiful technology of Google will confirm and also deny what it is that I am saying. This is the beauty and significance of Gemini Google. It will tell you the truth and then it will tell you the lie. It will tell you both, and it is up to you to know thyself, as it is written in Kemet, know thyself. And in knowing thyself, you will know what it is that you can trust and what it is that you cannot trust. And I'm going to take a moment to breathe here as I turn the camera on the moon and as I observe the moon myself. Any comments, put it in the chat while I take a break, while we take a break, and just look at the magnificence of the fire and observe together, as Inner Standing Overstanding says. A beautiful comment. So now, as I continue to share, one of the things that came across my mind today on Third Eye Day, as the sparks go off, is how much I did not know myself and how much it is that I hear my inner self saying, "We miss you." How much it is to adore my 72 nations saying, "We miss you." Saying, "We love you," and continue to do your soul work. Continue to honor the path that you have chosen, the path of honoring the moon, as the moon represents the feminine and the sun represents the masculine. The moon represents the receptive nature, and the sun honors that reception with creativity. Just as a man and a woman, when intercourse, the woman honors the man with fertility and bring forth a child, so too my personalities transmute, and the abundance of my 72 nations arise each cycle. So, for those who are here listening, do not be surprised if the next moon cycle you see differences in me. There will be integration, and that integration is also recognizable. I am being told by my ancestors that if you are in the United States, or if you are one to celebrate or honor the 4th of July, to consider honoring instead your soul sovereignty. As America, which many do not understand how it is not actually a country, as Rasta would say, it's more of a con tree. It's a tree there to con you of its fruits. It is more of a corporation than anything. It's a capitalist venture. And in this capitalist venture, it studies economy. And the word economy is rooted in the study of lack. It's rooted in the management of resources rather than the allowance of resources. As such, it is rooted in the study of lack. It is rooted in terror. And this is the entire globe's response to resources, because every single country studies economy to be a part of that economy, to be a part of that lack. And as America celebrates or honors its inception on this July 4th, I am being told by my ancestors to honor my soul sovereignty as America is honoring its malevolent soul sovereignty. As it is well known, should one choose to honor it, that the creation of America came about at the bloodshed of innocent ones. And while some argue that this is understandably the way of the world in those times, the way of the world in those times have continued into today, as there are wars and there continue to be more wars. And there will continue to be more wars as long as the human consciousness supports it, until course correction in the earth decides otherwise. And for those in the chat, it's been a beautiful time with you as I honor this third eye day. This is what I've seen throughout the day. This is what I'm seeing right now. It is an honor to be here with you, to traverse this plane of existence with you beautiful souls. And I am going to give this moment about a minute. And if there's nothing else in the chat, then I'm going to close this portal. Inner Standing says it's a cycle of occurrence of war. And that is absolutely true. There is a cycle. And I am seeing that I have chosen within myself to end that cycle within me. As my ancestors have said, and I am my ancestor. As above, so below. As without, so within. And I have chosen to end the war within me forever, in this lifetime. As I witness the war that occurs on the outside of me. I know that I have to keep myself humble, lest I become ignorant, arrogant, tasteless, bitter, greedy, and pursue economy and pursue something that I know cannot feed my soul. So within me, I have ended the cycle of war and I am thriving. I have chosen to thrive against all conscious human arts. I am choosing to tap into the love frequency of the earth and to ascend in abundance. Abundance of mind, abundance of heart, abundance of soul, abundance of courage, abundance of love, abundance of health, abundance of wealth, abundance of all the treasures that are there buried in my earth star chakra. Ashe. Abundance of life. That is for sure. That is for certain. And the abundance of life is made pleasurable in friendships, in like minds, in soul contracts that honor the truth of who they are. Ashe and amen. And with that, I close this portal and thank you all for being here. Ashe and amen.